Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to our online guest speaker series for November. My name is Rebecca Lee and I'm the coordinator for online services. And I also have our guest speaker here today, and this is Andrew Pitt from Rogers Communications. So just welcome everybody.
So good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. My name is Andrew Pitt. It's an absolute pleasure to be talking to you today. I really get truly excited when I'm recounting my experience on moving to Canada and my job search activities. So it's an extreme pleasure to be talking to you guys today. A little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Andrew Pitt. I was born in England, but as you can hear from my colorful accent, I've spent the majority of my life in the Caribbean, more specifically in Barbados. I'm a sports enthusiast. I love every sport on the earth. My favorite team is Liverpool, on the top of the Premier League. I'm a certified personal trainer, so I have a passion for wellness and health, and that goes a long way in my daily duties at Rogers, and I'll go into that a little later. I'm married and I have a 4-year-old daughter. A little bit about my professional life. I have an honors degree in electrical and computer engineering from the University of the West Indies in Trinidad, the land of the greatest carnival in the world. I transitioned over to Cable and Wireless, which was the largest telecommunication company in the Caribbean, which is the largest telecommunication company in the Caribbean. And before coming to Canada, I spent my entire working life at Cable and Wireless. And I had progressive roles in the company, and before coming to Canada, I provided business development to Fortune 500 companies like Scotiabank and CIBC. And I was under the impression that being involved with those Fortune 500 companies who reside here in Canada, life will be pretty easy when I transition. But as you would hear, that was far from the truth. So you're probably wondering, well, if you were in Barbados and you were having, life was so great, why did you come to Canada? And I can tell you, first of all, that my travels to Canada is not a traditional one, because, as I mentioned before, I'm married and my wife is Jamaican, and she worked at Scotiabank in Barbados and reported to the head office here in Toronto. Now, she's from Jamaica, I'm from Barbados, and we weren't moving to Jamaica. She didn't really like Barbados, so we saw Canada as a very good, happy medium in terms of raising our 2-year-old daughter at the time. So while traveling back and forth to Toronto, she would network with her colleagues here in Canada, which she was really good at, and she interviewed for a role and was successful. Now, when you put that into perspective, she's in Barbados and she interviewed for a role in Canada, and there's a lot of competition here in the banking industry in Canada. So for her to get that role was an awesome experience. So we packed up our bags, and after being at my company for 23 years, I separated, and we only had about 3-4 months to pack, and away we came to Canada. So my road to Canada was not a traditional one where we were preparing for 2-3 years. It was, hey, we got a job, let's go. We were also mindful of our 2-year-old daughter and the opportunities that would present themselves to her here in a big city. So we had no hesitation in leaving all of our friends and family and coming to Canada. So when we arrived, of course, my wife started to work immediately. And after working for 23 years at one company, and although I would have applied for roles internally um, in moving up in the company, putting myself out there was not an easy thing for me to do. There was no need to network in Barbados because we're a very close society, so it's about who you know. And I came to Canada with a false sense of security. As I said, I've worked with a lot of Canadian companies, Scotiabank and CIBC, and I figured, oh, I'll just go in and talk to my key resources that I will interface with, and they'll find me a job. Only to realize that my peers at that level were not influencers, so I had to start from day one. So I made some very, very big mistakes when I first, and this would go very well for you guys to not make the same mistakes. So I came and I said, hey, let me get up there as quickly as I can. So every day I was applying for roles, 3, 4, 5 roles a day. I had a blanket resume, and I would apply for a role and send my resumes to all of these roles. One of the biggest mistakes I made was my last title in Barbados was a vice president's role, and I came to Canada and was applying for VP roles here in Canada. Now, VP in Barbados doesn't translate to a VP here in Canada, so I had a rude awakening when I realized that I was getting nowhere at that particular level. At that point in time, I engaged some recruiters, and they exposed me to the harsh reality that I need to step down and readjust my resume. One of the big things that I had to adjust as well was there are particular titles in Barbados that are not known here. For instance, I had a role of head HOD, head of department. That's not a role or a level that you find here in Canada. So anyone reading my resume would not know, well, what does this mean? So I had to convert my resume for a Canadian landscape. One of the other mistakes that I made was that I was applying for roles where I was either overqualified or underqualified. And what I mean by that was the role dictated that you required 5 to 7 years of telecom experience. And I would say, okay, I have 25 years of telecom experience. That's a big no-no. You satisfy what the job requirements are, no more, no less. In some cases, there's a requirement that you need to speak French fluently. Je parle un petit peu français. I can speak a little French, but not fluently. Again, if you can't speak it fluently, don't apply for the role. So that was one of the mistakes I made. And then finally, I spent my entire day being on the computer, searching for roles. Again, another big mistake, and I'm going to go into why that was a big mistake. So, first thing I need to assure everyone on this webinar is you will get a job in Canada. You will get a job in Canada. There are lots of opportunities here. But your first job in Canada is to find a job. What do I mean by that? You have to structure your day. You have to structure your week as if you were actually working. So for instance, you get up at 7 o'clock, you do your normal chores, and then you dedicate 8 till 12 to, okay, I'm going to look on all of the job boards and see if there are any new jobs that came out. Then, yeah, have your lunch at 12 o'clock, and then in the evening, dedicate the evening to going to events, meeting people, going to job fairs. End of day, shut up, because again, if you become so intense in finding a job, you're going to burn out. So you have to treat finding a job like a job, right? So that's, again, one of the mistakes that I made. And as long as you start to structure your day and try to get your job, find your job, it will go much better for you. So the first thing I had to review was my resume. You know, again, a lot of the roles that I had on my resume were foreign in the Canadian climate. So I had to, and I'm not saying that you are actually putting false information, but I needed to tailor my previous roles so that they were understood in a Canadian environment. Secondly, I had to, what I dedicated myself to doing was doing a course here in Canada. Your resume is enhanced tremendously if it reflects some type of Canadian certification. I'm not a financial guy, but I am driven by financial investments. So I did a CSC course, and at least I had that to put on my resume. Then you need to have a very strong and active LinkedIn profile. And I don't mean that in creating a profile and connecting with not only with connecting with colleagues and people that you're meeting for the first time, but you also have to be active in relation to commenting on articles, posting articles that you're passionate about. That's what's being active on LinkedIn, because invariably when someone is doing a search on you, they're also looking to see what you've contributed to the LinkedIn environment and what drives you in a LinkedIn environment. So having a strong, active profile is key. One of the other things I had to do was to make sure that I had an email address that was professional. So of course, when I came to Canada, I brought my email address from Barbados, and the domain is foreign here to Canada. So sometimes if you're sending someone an email and they see it's coming from an email address that doesn't fall in line with the .gmail or the .yahoos and those type of popular domains, sometimes it can be ignored. So I created a new email address and dedicated that email address to my job search. I think I touched on this before, where when you're tailoring your resume, you shouldn't detail anything that's more than 10 years old. Usually, if you're applying for a role that you have experience in 11 years ago, you wouldn't be considered. So all of those roles that you did 10 years, and you can mention it, but don't go into those details. That's what I had to do. Here in Canada, we are really, really big on volunteering. You know, it's as long as you're in the corporate environment, you're expected to volunteer. I had some volunteer experience in Barbados, but again, I had to localize that volunteer experience. People want to know, what have you done here in Canada? How have you volunteered in Canada? So if you haven't done any volunteering in Canada, I will encourage you to do that, and that will enhance your resume. And this last point is very, very critical in terms of making sure that you have what I call an action resume, where, you know, we come from a society where we don't actually call this document a resume. We call it a CV, a curriculum vitae, where we kind of itemize all of the things that we would have done in the particular roles. which really is a cut and paste of a job description, basically. A resume, an active and an action resume is not like that. So I have an example here where one of your job descriptions may have been to provide business development to global customers. Now, what makes it an action is relating it to a Canadian environment. Here I mentioned Scotiabank, RBC, and CIBC. That catches attention, and quantify it by data in sales revenue, increased sales revenue by 260 million over 400. Recruiters want to see action, right? So that's one of the areas of my resume that I had to tailor, as opposed to just highlighting the actual job role itself. So let me share now the search and things that I would have done and honed in on. So I applied for roles that were within my area code. And what I mean by that, in Canada, there is a very strict work-life balance. Back home, work finishes at 4 o'clock, and you can see people in the office till 7, 8, not here in Canada. Here in Canada, at 5 o'clock, you can see the swarm of people going down to the train station. You could be carried down to the train station without your feet leaving the ground because of the swarm of people that's leaving work all at the same time. So, with that said, recruiters and employers know that it makes no sense looking at a candidate who lives in another time zone, in another area code, because they know that the commute is going to be very difficult. Sometimes you probably take 2 hours to get there. So they know from the beginning that you will be dealing with a stressful situation, and the candidate may break down at some point in time because you cannot sustain that level of commute every day. So employers like to know that they're recruiting within their particular environments. Then what I did was target industries. So I'm in the telecom industry, work for the largest telecommunication company in Barbados, and I focused my job search on the 3 biggest telecom companies here in Canada. And by the way, I work at Rogers, which is the biggest wireless telecom company in Canada. And I also did work for the banks, as I said before. So I targeted my search to the telecom industry and the finance industry. And I became very, very targeted in that particular area. So you can imagine that if I'm targeting those particular sectors, that I'm going to shrink the opportunities that are exposed to me. And that was okay. I registered at all of the job sites, and I have it listed here, Indeed and Workopolis and Monster. You need to make sure you're registered with these sites so that when you start entering your keywords, as soon as a job comes up with that particular keyword, you're notified. When a new job comes online, recruiters look within the first 2 days. The responses that come in the first 2 days always go to the top. You probably have a period of 10 to 15 days that the job is advertised for. They concentrate on how many applicants they got in the first 2 to 3 days, because they are already shortlisting those applicants before the end of the cycle. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you are indeed registered with these job sites so that you can um, apply very quickly. Now, applying for a job very quickly means that you have to take your time in responding to what the job is asking for. So when I mentioned here about tailoring your resume, it took me an average of about 3 hours to tailor my resume to what the job requires. Now, if you think about it, when you're taking 3 hours to tailor your resume, how many jobs can you apply for in a day? So when I first came to Canada, as I said, I was applying for about 5-6 jobs a day. After I got the law of the land, I was applying for about 2-3 jobs a week. Now, I didn't feel as if I was losing out, but it was because I was very focused and very determined to make sure that I got my application, my resume right the first time. So it took me about 3-4 hours to make sure I had the right response to that resume. And one of the key things that you have to do is identify the keywords that's dictating that resume. Now, the recruitment process in Canada is about a 4-step process. You can imagine in the industry of telecom and IT, when a job comes out, you're going to have literally 1,000 people or more applying for that role. So the HR department can't take on that task of going through every single one of those. So all applicants go through a vetting process, which is an electronic process of scanning your resume and see if it hits all of the keywords. A tool that I used is this tool here, where I would cut and paste what the job is looking for, and out pops all the keywords. So my particular role, I'm the product manager of MPLS. So you can see product is dominant, MPLS is dominant, technical is dominant, management is dominant. After you create you tailor your resume, what you should do is cut and paste your resume into the same tool and see if those same keywords pop out, because that's what the computer is looking for. They're going to identify 4 or 5 keywords, and if it pops out, then you're shortlisted. So this is a very good tool, wordle.net, that you can use to make sure that you determine what the keywords are in the job role that you're applying for. So that's the interview process, and I'm going to go into what made me successful during that interview process and the do's and don'ts. But let me digress a little bit in terms of the brand and your personal brand. So as I said before, Canada is a very progressive country today. It is, and after the elections yesterday, it will be even more, you will have a big influx, definitely, of more skilled people, candidates coming into Canada. So we all come with our degrees and diplomas and masters and PhDs. Those technical skills will not differentiate us in terms of a recruiter. It's your brand that would define us. You have to be memorable, you know. So here's what I'm saying. Well, you can't be everything to everybody, but you have to pick a couple attributes about you that would resonate and uniquely identify you. So here's my brand, where, you know, when I walk through the halls of Rogers, This is what people see coming towards them. They see an avid sports fanatic and always talking about sports. Here in Canada, there are 4 areas that you need to be very versed in. You need to be a good sports fan. You need to be positive about the weather. You need to be positive about the TTC. And you leave it there for now. So I'm a big sports fan. And as a result, when people see me, they see, I always tell people that team is in my DNA. I always like to be around people. And I work in an environment where collaboration is key. So when I meet people, what they see from me is a guy that likes to be around people. As I said before, I'm a certified personal trainer, and I have a passion for wellness and health in the workplace. So I'm constantly motivating and consulting my colleagues in adopting a healthy lifestyle. There's no better feeling than giving my colleagues advice about weight loss and to hear them come back 3 months later. Andrew, I did that and I lost 10 pounds. Now, again, that's part of my brand. People gravitate to me because of that positive, motivational guidance that I'm giving them in terms of making their life better. So, establishing a brand is extremely important when you're looking at trying to get a job here in Canada. So, what did success feel like when I got my role at Rogers? So, here's some guidance for you. As I said, the interview process is a 4-step process where the computer starts that process, segments 1,000 applicants down to about 20. Those 20 applicants, they're given a phone interview. Now, if you get that phone interview, 100% of the time, you tell that recruiter, sorry, this is not a good time. Can I call you back this evening? Or if the call came in the evening, can we arrange to have this call first thing tomorrow morning? Because that's totally unacceptable, because they understand that they're calling you without prior knowledge. They're calling you knowing that you could be on the train and it's not a good time to talk. One of the mistakes I made was getting that first telephone interview and being so excited to get a call from Scotiabank that I wanted to, this was positive. I wanted to talk to them right away. But it wasn't a good time. I had my daughter there. She was screaming. I couldn't concentrate. It was a disaster. So first thing to do when you get that phone interview, thank you very much for this call. Can we arrange to talk tomorrow? Because if you're sending out applications, you're not keeping up to date with the companies that, you are, but you're not going into details to know all of the things that you need to know about the company. So you need now to prepare yourself for that phone interview. And that phone interview is going to concentrate on 2 things. 1, tell me about yourself, and trust me, you're not going to get a second chance to make that first impression. Tell me about yourself, and why do you want to work at Rogers? 2 most important questions that you have to be prepared to knock it out of the park. So first, that was the phone interview. And as I said, I was prepared because I had 2 prior phone interviews, and the second one went better than the first one, but again, I wasn't prepared. So I was very much prepared for this one. So when I had the first interview, again, the preparation is key. You need to know who you're interviewing with. I went on Facebook and I researched those interviews, and they did not address their social activity in the interview, but I knew they had sons and daughters, so I purposely mentioned my daughter, and I knew that one of them had a daughter in French immersion. I mentioned that, knowing that I'm going to get that response from them. Oh, my daughter is at French immersion as well, and that reconnected right there and then. That was that really goes a long way in that first interview. I mean, when I told them that I was a personal trainer and I really enjoy helping people lose weight, I spent 10 to 15 minutes on that alone. That broke all the barriers down, and we didn't even talk about the role yet. It's just that first engagement and knowing that that's what they're interested in, that goes a long way. And always have relevant questions to ask in that first interview. I knew after that first interview that I had to do two things to get that second interview, because it's not really what happens in that first interview, it's what happens after. I sent emails thanking them. I sent follow-up emails. Have you made a decision yet? I sent about 3 levels of follow-up, and they saw the passion that I have in wanting to come to work at Rogers. So when I got that second interview with the director, I could have said anything. I knew I had the job, because you just have that feeling that all the hard work is done, and now it's just a matter of demonstrating that confidence to the director, you know, and just keep smiling and be yourself. So here comes the challenge for all of us new to Canada, because networking is very, very new to us. You know, we're not accustomed to being on a bus and seeing someone that may look like they work at a particular institution. Say, oh, you work at Social Bank. What do you do? Trust me, Canadians are so friendly. They're not going to look at you with scorn and say, don't talk to me as if you're in New York on Subway. You know, you're always going to get that very friendly response coming back. But when you're going to these events and you're doing your networking, you know, we tend to focus on, I need to talk to someone that will get me a job. You know, that is okay, but that's not the right approach. The right approach is introducing yourself and letting that person do the talking first. Trust me, everyone loves to talk about themselves. Everyone loves to talk about their achievements, and then they tend to also go into the challenges that they may have at work. After you start listening, then comes your elevator pitch that you're practicing and you're tailoring in your mind while you're listening to them, because recruiters and anyone that you're talking to want to know, how is this person that I'm talking to can help me in my organization. So it's not about you begging for a job. It's about listening to them and then proving to them how you can help them be successful. That 2-minute elevator speech now is about 30 seconds. You can't go rambling and rambling. You have to hit nail on the head after 30 seconds, and you have to make it about you. Don't concentrate on your technical skills. Make it about you, because if that person goes home and can't remember your name, you haven't made an impression. Now, my name is Andrew Pitt, and it's easy for me to say, yes, I'm Brad Pitt's cousin, you know. And for those who don't watch movies, Brad Pitt is a very popular actor, and it's funny because we are totally different. So that usually breaks the ice, and I go from there, because and that alone, people would remember my name because they know Brad Pitt. You met this guy Andrew Pitt, and he is an athlete, and he can make me lose weight. Let me give him a call. You know, so that initial engagement is very, very important when we are networking.
That is really the end of our presentation. And I just want to thank all of you for attending, and thank you so much just for Andrew as well, just for taking the time. And I hope that you all enjoyed the webinar. So have a great afternoon or evening, and I will see you online again. So have a great day.